Well, hello again. This is the 6th of November 2021. Quite a long time since my last update, just simply because I am pregnant and am permanently exhausted. I am still alive and still doing this. So today I thought I would talk about person first versus identity first language, because it is something that seems to come up quite a lot in discussions. And I mean, I don't think really it's a major issue, but a lot of other people seem to think it is. And I thought I'd explain the ins and outs of the debate for those who aren't really involved in it, but are vaguely interested. Anyway, what is identity first language? What is person first language? Person first is when you say, I am a person with autism, or, my son has autism, or, some of our employees have autism. You talk of, the person themselves before you say, before you describe them as being autistic. Identity first is when you say this is an autistic person, or, I have an autistic mum, or, I have an autistic friend, whatever. And speaking as yourself, you would say, I am autistic, rather than I have autism. I think the major issue is that very often, the reason why there's such a debate about it is because very often allistic people, they want to try and be politically correct and inclusive, and they insist on saying person with autism, person first language, because they feel that you need to describe someone as a person. That is the important part of their identity, before you then qualify it by saying that they are autistic. Whereas, people actually in the autistic community very often, not always, I mean, the autistic community is a broad church. There are many, many of us who all have different feelings about various issues. Some do prefer to be person with autism, do prefer to say that the overwhelming majority prefer to say they are autistic people. They use the identity first. Reason being that it's not a disease. I think the identity, the person first language is generally used for kind of illnesses and disabilities, maybe mental illnesses, and it kind of suggests a fundamental understanding of what autism is. And there's a slightly more sinister aspect is, the cure for autism movement. Autism isn't curable. Okay, you can't cure autism any more than you can cure having brown eyes or being tall. It's a genetic variation. You can't cure it without eugenics, right? Cures for autism is essentially eugenics, or maybe to some extent brainwashing. The sort of ABA type treatments, where a child is sort of engaged in reprogramming to make them behave as if they are holistic. Doing those horrible, dirty, autistic things like hand flapping and such. Anyway, yes, the Autism Cure Brigade are very keen on the person first, because it describes autism as something that is separate from the individual. It's something that you have that you may not have. That you could possibly be imagined to be without. Whereas the goal of the autism acceptance movement is very much more to understand that autism is part of just how a person is, in the same way that a gay person is not a person with gay, or a black person is not a person with black. It's just a fundamental part of how your body and your mind are. And when you think about things that are described in a person first way, they tend to be negative things. A person with an illness. Things that you would want to be rid of. I think to a large extent it is quite poetic. I'm not sure that most people who are casually discussing an autistic person who say, oh yes, I know someone who has autism, they're not necessarily thinking about it in that way. It's just so much part of the language. Sometimes it's just what comes out of your mouth. And very often, as I was saying, it is sort of considered quite politically correct by holistic people, especially people who are, involved in autism support, and carers for autistic people. They do very often want to use the person first language to say that we are looking after people, not this condition that we have. But again, it's sort of suggesting that people and autism are separate things. Person is inherent in the word autism. You wouldn't get a autistic magpie or an autistic yucca plant or an autistic 1992 Ford Sierra Estate. It's, if you are autistic, you are automatically a person. It's a thing that people have. But again, it is. It's not something that I think we should, as a group, be particularly pedantic and get very upset about and spend too much time on, really, because, as I say, it is something that's just poetic. It's how you feel about individual words. It's about who uses these individual words. Ultimately, it's about feelings and opinions. And as I say, there are some people who are in the autistic community, involved in autistic rights activism, who do prefer person first, for their own reasons. and I'm not going to say that they are wrong. I'm not going to argue with their personal feelings. But I'd say, to be on the safe side, for holistics who want to interact with autistic people, I think it is safer to assume we would rather be autistic than people with autism. And as I say, the overwhelming majority do prefer the identity first, simply because it is something that has not been chosen for us by holistics who, are maybe well-meaning, but haven't really consulted the community with what we want. And I think I do think as well that policing people's language, I mean, to a certain extent, you don't want to say anything inadvertently offensive, but at the same time, people do just make innocent mistakes. Some people have been told by people they trusted, their teachers, that you should always use person first, and they make a genuine mistake. And I think telling them off about it and getting upset about it is quite alienating, which is something that as a community we really don't want to be doing. I think encouraging dialogue is important, for autism acceptance, and allowing people to discuss their experiences and to not spend too much time on policing what kind of language they are using when they're being perfectly well-meaning, and the ultimate the core message of what they're trying to say is sound. I think we can. I think it's something that a lot of people do care about. Clearly, there have been a lot of discussions about it that I've read, and a lot of people have very strong feelings on it. I'm not going to say that they're making a fuss about nothing or anything like that. I just feel that it's something that really, when listening to another person's opinion, you can just let it slide for now, as I say, that there are plenty of perfectly well-meaning people who do, in good faith, use person-first language because they were told that that's the right way to speak about autistic people. And yes, those in the community prefer, by and large, identity first, but is it really a big deal, all things considered, if they are generally allies? The thing that I do get annoyed about is the sort of insistence that some holistic people have on using person first, and the way they kind of hammer it home to others that, you know, this is the way to do it. I've known a few people who've been on kind of autism awareness course and things who were told, no, you really need to use person first, and it's not true. You know, that is where there is a big problem. Because, as I say, you know, autistic people generally don't like the person first. It's associated with the, you know, the sort of cure for autism movement, and probably based on a misunderstanding of what autism is. It speaks about it like it's some sort of disease or mental illness, maybe. I mean, it's debatable, you know, whether neurodiversity generally is even disability. I'll probably come back to on at a later date. I think I'm going to just repeating myself now, aren't I? I've been through this before. Anyway, I'll leave it there. I will see you in the next one. Any further opinions, pop in the comments. Bye for now.